So I'm Dr. Suzanne Ruddy. I'm the admissions tutor for molecular biosciences, which is what we collectively call biochemistry, biochemistry with molecular biology and the various permutations of that. And what we're going to do this morning is I'm going to give you a quick rundown of biochemistry at UCL and a very quick history of UCL. And then we're going to hand over to you guys to the floor to talk to our students and the staff that are here to answer any of the questions that you have. So the first thing I need to do is to share my screen so that you can see my presentation. Yeah, cool, great. Okay, Open Days 2025 is what you're looking at. So UCL, we are coming up to our almost 200-year bicentennial next year. Next year, 2026, we will be 200 years old. UCL was founded on the 11th of February, 1826, and it opened to students a couple of years later. And it was set up really in direct response to the fact that if you wanted to go to university in England, you could only go to either Oxford or Cambridge, and you had to, in order to go to either of those, be either male, wealthy, or part of the clergy. So UCL was set up as a sort of a response to that, and it was set up by these people here: Thomas Campbell, who was a Scottish poet, Henry Brougham, who was also very active in Scotland and became the Lord Chancellor of Great Britain, and Jeremy Bentham, who is our, if you like, spiritual leader still and very much applauded around UCL. This is Jeremy, a parody of him supposedly trying to raise funds for UCL. This great building that is the building that you see today. It's called the Wilkins Building after the architect of it. And this is how UCL looks today. So it did come to pass. They bought for £30,000 8 acres of land, which is what we call the Bloomsbury campus, this campus here and all the buildings around it, and established UCL. So as an opposing institution, I guess, if you like, to Oxford and Cambridge, UCL was avant-garde and very keen on establishing itself as having lots of firsts. So here are some of the firsts around about that time. It was the first university to have international students from Japan, first university to admit women, have lectures for ladies, and have mixed university classes. It took them quite a while after admitting ladies to actually have them admitted as full degree students. But actually it took Oxford and Cambridge much, much longer. I think one of those institutions didn't completely admit women until the 1900s. So although it sounds like a long while, they were actually much quicker than other institutions. It was the first university to have various different degree programs, the first school of architecture, the first to teach modern languages, English language, English literature, geography, chemistry, first to have a big chemistry lab, which is was the Birkbeck Lab, and we still have very close connections with Birkbeck University. It was the first to teach medicine in a structured way with a teaching hospital. The University College Hospital was built in 1840. So lots of firsts, not surprisingly. Also, talking about medicine, the first operation under anaesthesia in Europe was carried out at UCL by the surgeon Robert Liston. And he was notorious for his speed, which was the only mercy that the poor person undergoing the surgery could have, especially if they were being amputated. He could amputate a leg in 2.5 minutes, less than 2.5 minutes. But he has been known, or had been known, to make a few little slips here and there because of his speed, and once apparently also amputated the testicles of the poor patient as well in his haste. But biosciences have always been at the front of UCL's achievements, and we have quite a few science Nobel laureates, some of whom are listed here. John O'Keefe for neurophysiology. There are a few others for neurophysiology. John O'Keefe recently in 2014, but 1970. Sir Bernard Katz for neurophysiology as well. And in 1963, Andrew Huxley, also for neurophysiology. Martin Evans in 2007 for genetics. Paul Nurse for his control of the cell cycle and regulation of cancer. James Rothman for vesicular transport and transport of proteins through the cell. And going back even further, we have Nobel laureates right the way back to our early days back in 1915, I think was the earliest. So quite a few famous people associated for all the right reasons with UCL. But nowadays, we have grown to be a very large university of about 50,000 students in total. We have a total of about 30 Nobel laureates across the universities. We are very international. We've got students from 150 different countries, and we have a very good student-staff ratio with 16,000 members of staff. At the minute, this current year, we are 7th in the world, according to the Times Good University Guide, and we're 9th in the world, according to the QS rankings, the Complete University Guide, and the Guardian rankings. So we are consistently up there in the top 10 worldwide of the universities. In terms of research, the last REF, which was the Research Excellence Framework, which measures the research quality and quantity output of the different institutions in the UK, was in 2021, REF 2021. And it measures a parameter called, or it consolidates a parameter called research power, that is basically the quality and the quantity of the research adjusted for the size of the institution. And UCL was second in the UK at the last REF for its research power, where 93% of our research was considered either world-leading or internationally excellent. And you might think, well, that's research, but I'm interested, I'm coming for the teaching. But the research informs all our teaching, and we are a research-led university, and you will be taught according to research guiding principles and research methods. So the research is really important for our teaching as well. So I want to just quickly talk about what biochemistry as a subject is. And as a subject, it's really the chemistry of biology or the biology of chemistry, depending on whatever way you want to look at it. And you have the flexibility really within our degree to take it from either of those angles. So starting with the cell down here at the bottom with the big nucleus in the middle, biochemistry encompasses really every aspect of the cell that you can think of. So let's start at the beginning with the nucleus and the DNA. Biochemistry, molecular biology, which is very closely related. I will talk briefly about the slight differences between the two. We'll look at DNA, the organization of the DNA within the genome, the chromosomes, how genes are organized within the chromosomes, how the DNA is regulated, how it's replicated, what controls that, make sure that replication only happens whenever it's necessary for cell division, the machinery that's involved around that, the proteins that make up that machinery, how they are regulated, how they come together to achieve the DNA replication, how the DNA is then transcribed into RNA, messenger RNA in particular, to be translated into the proteins that are the executive end of the cell, the doing end of the cell, if you like. So all the controls for transcription and translation, all the machineries that are involved with that, the molecular machines that are responsible for that, all the things that regulate when a gene is switched on or switched off, in other words, transcribed or not, when the messenger RNA is translated, and all the machinery and controls around that. And then the proteins that are formed as a result of that, like I said, the executors, the business end of the cell, if you like, how they get to where they're supposed to be and how they're regulated and how their activity is controlled, and whether they become structural proteins or whether they're secreted outside, how all of that is executed. And also the difference between structural proteins and enzymic proteins and the rules that govern them. So the enzyme kinetics that relate to the functioning of the enzymes, all of that comes under biochemistry and biochemistry molecular biology. So in order to study biochemistry with us, we ask for at A level, 3 A levels, specifically chemistry, biology and maths, all at grade A. And if you're doing an IB, the IB diploma, we want a total of 38 points. 18 of those points have to be in the higher level subjects, which must be biochemistry, and must be biology, chemistry, maths, sorry, and none of the scores to be below 5. So that's what we're asking, if that subject sounds appealing to you and you'd like to consider coming and joining us. So the degrees that we offer, I've talked a little bit about molecular biosciences. What exactly is molecular biosciences? Well, we offer a BSc degree, which is a 3-year degree, We also offer an MSci degree, which is a 4-year degree. And I'll talk about the 4th year a little bit later about what comprises the 4th year. But we also offer, if you want to transfer from a BSc to an MSci, you don't need to make the decision right at the point of entry. You can apply to be come in as a BSc student, and on meeting academic criteria at the end of 2nd year, you can transfer to be an MSci student, or you can apply directly as an MSci student immediately for the 4-year degree. So you have a bit of flexibility there. We also offer a year in industry option. So if you were to do that at BSc, that would make a 4-year degree, because you would spend your 3rd year out on placement at your industrial site and come back and finish with a 4-year degree. And we also offer the year in industry option in the MSci degree, which would make it a 5-year degree program. And you always take your industrial placement year in your penultimate year, whether you're in BSc or MSci, it'll be the year before you finish. So you will always come back to UCL to finish your degree after your placement year. So looking a bit at the degree content, in order to be able to study all those things that I talked about, you're really going to have to look at what you're really going to be looking at are the structure and the function and the synthesis and the regulation of proteins and nucleic acids, DNA and RNA, in other words. And we're the Department of Structural and Molecular Biology. And I put up this figure here, this complex here, as a representative of how structure relates to function and how that informs what we do in our department. So this is the type 4 secretion system. It's actually a core complex. And you can see this is made up of lots and lots of proteins. So this is after the DNA has been transcribed and translated, and the proteins have folded into these different structures, these alpha helices here shown in green, and these beta sheets, so shown here, these flat sort of cyan things here, and along here as well. And what this does is it folds and organizes itself into this whole complex, which is the type 4 secretion system, which is actually a pore. You can see that there's a pore-like structure, and you can see, imagine if you can't really exactly see it quite exactly, there's a pore running down the middle of this. And what this structure does is it allows the transfer of material from one bacterium to another, bacterial conjugation, in other words. Mostly it could be DNA or it could be proteins that are transferred, and the structure and the function is just really nicely illustrated by this complex. So that's what our department is all about. In order to be able to study biochemistry with us, you'll have to obviously do some chemistry, some organic and both physical chemistry. You'll be looking at metabolism, the reactions of life, the chemical reactions, so how foods are used to make things and how metabolism is controlled. Cell physiology, how cells communicate with each other and with their environment, and cell structure and function and how they interact at the molecular and biochemical level. And you'll also, because biochemistry is an experimental science, you will also look at designing experiments, creating experiments, coming up with scientific questions, and how to analyze data to answer the questions that you've asked. So the degree content, it's taught in basically every way that you could think possible to teach this content. We teach you through lectures, seminars, which are presentations where you will sit and listen and have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Presentations that might be given to you like a seminar, or you give presentations. You'll have tutorials, group tutorials, you'll have practicals, and you'll have online learning as well from our virtual learning environment, which we call Moodle. And of course, various means of assessment will follow from that. So you'll have exams at the end of the year. You might have in-course tests. Our exams mostly this year are written, supervised, invigilated exams at the end of the year. But you'll also have coursework. You might have practical reports to write up. You might have tutorials that have exercises that you need to submit for assessment or for feedback, and of course presentations, as I mentioned up there. So the degree content is looking at these things: the structure, function, synthesis, regulation of proteins and nucleic acids. And I talked about earlier, if you like, whenever the cell is behaving normally as it should, the controls and the regulation of DNA replication, transcription, translation, protein translocation, etc., etc. But we're not only interested in whenever things are going well in the cell, in other words, whenever the cell's healthy, but also what goes wrong with these regulations and these machineries and these structures and these kinetics in disease. So you could pick any disease, really, cardiovascular disease. So non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular disease or neurodegeneration or autoimmune diseases, but also infectious diseases or cancers or metabolic disorders. And you could look at what's going on and what's going wrong in those diseases through the lens of any of the aspects that I talked about before, through the lens of what's happening at the level of transcription, for example, in cancer, or what's happening in DNA replication at cancer, or autoimmune disease, what's happening with protein trafficking. Any of these can apply to any disease. So you can see that there's a huge breadth of subject in biochemistry where you can almost pick a specialized area. Well, you can pick a specialized area that you are interested in for your future career. And our degree aims to give you a good grounding and some specialism towards the end in subjects and topics that you are particularly interested in. So that takes me to the degree as it progresses. So I said that you will have the opportunity to specialize. First year, everybody does the same thing. There is no choice. In second year, you will have some choice. But by third year, that's when you really get to have a bit more choice. So there are really only two core elements that you must take in third year, which is a research project, either a specialist research project with practical experience, in other words, in metagenomics, where students are looking at microbial populations and identifying them through sequence analysis, or a project in protein structure and function, where the principles around protein production and quality control and purification and characterization are looked at. You pick one or other of those, and everybody does an advanced literature project, a dissertation on a topic of interest that is led by you, the student, and researched by you, and you produce a report about this with your own particular angle on the topic. So that's where the two main things in third year are projects, a research project and a literature project. And after that, you can choose your other specialities according to clashes, for example, if what fits with the timetable and what fits with your level of expertise. You'll, of course, be advised on this, but you do have a good level of choice by third year. So some students will graduate out after third year with a BSc, but some students will stay on. Oh, I'm jumping ahead. This is to give you some examples of the third year research projects in the metagenomics project. So I said that they were looking at microbiomes, or if I didn't say that, I should have. They're looking at microbiomes in this project. And the students come up with hypotheses and situations to investigate what comprises different microbiomes. So here's a few example projects. So here's one looking at a very rich diet, the Alios diet, in mice, and looking about the effect of that on their microbiome and trying to identify the organisms that are present in the microbiome as a result of eating this very rich food. This one's looking at nasal microbiomes between young adults and sniffer dogs to see if they are particularly different, and they differ over the time of day. So the different microbiome composition relating to humans, sniffer dogs, different times of day. And this one again is also looking at murine gut microbial changes to the microbiome, considering different dietary interventions. So changing the diet and seeing how that affects the microbiome. So that's some of the example projects in the metagenomics third year project. But in fourth year, the fourth year of the MSci program is really all about research. And this is an example of a project that a student will have done in our MSci fourth year program. And what that is about is you join a research group for the entire fourth year, and you spend a considerable amount of time through the year, at least 6 months, working on your research project as part of that group. And it's all about research methods. So you will learn how to write a grant proposal, write a technical review, make a poster like this. You'll do oral presentations. You'll write up their project in the style of a manuscript for a journal submission. So it's considering everything to do with the research. And it's really aimed for students who are sure that they are keen on continuing in a research direction. A few example projects from our fourth year students. The first two here are disease focused. So the look of the role of regulatory RNA in the growth and persistence of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And this one, the malarial parasite, how their proteins are associated with immune receptors and how they bind to immune receptors in the humans. So these two are disease related, as some of our projects are. The next two are largely technically focused. So this is using NMR to look at how proteins fold as soon as they are created, whenever they come off the ribosome. This one's using optical tweezers, laser tweezers, to look at tension in DNA and how that relates to whenever DNA is required to be single-stranded, for example, replication or transcription. This one is synthetic biology, so manipulating the genome in Chlamydomonas. And these last two are out at our nearby institutes that we have connections with, that we can put our students out in. So this one is looking at regulation of DNA replication, how it gets started and how that is controlled at the Crick Institute. And this one's looking at pain perception and sodium channels, and that was what at the Wolfson Lab for Biomedical Research. So we do use institutes nearby, institutes of excellence for our fourth year projects as well. So these are some of the external examiner contents from a few years back whenever we started with the MSci program. And they were really very positive about it. And I haven't updated these since 22 to 23 because although our examiners have changed, they still say they pretty much exactly the same. It's a world-leading program. It's very successful. The students are conscientiously trained. It's enthusiastic. It's exciting. You can read it for yourself. So the MSci program is very highly regarded by both our students who take it and our external examiners. So the transferable skills that you're going to get from our degree program, lots of knowledge skills. You'll learn loads of things. You'll become skilled at pulling out information and selecting what you need to use and problem solving. You'll have experimental technical skills, so experimental design, data analysis, IT. You'll have to have self-management skills. I know you'll be practicing those already as you finalize through your pre-university education, but that will come into play even further at university. Teamwork skills. Employers always want people to be able to work in teams. So we do put you into teams for various assessments and various aspects and various modules. You'll be required to work in teams where you'll have to employ all of these skills. And of course, I did mention earlier presentation skills. So you'll have to write, which is a form of presentation. You'll have to do oral presentations and you'll have to do poster presentations, all of which are required pretty much in almost any job nowadays. It's not all about the curricular stuff, of course, though. We support you in other ways, in extracurricular ways, and you'll find lots of other extracurricular things around UCL. In terms of curricular, extra support. We will guide you through designing and implementing experiments. There's careers information advice available. There's support on mathematical skills. We support you in how to do good presentations with RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, who are close by and will come and do a workshop with you. And you get assistance with writing academic and scientific English. But extracurricular, we have student advisors for situations that life might throw at you that aren't directly related to academic things. So you might want to talk about those with student advisors, things that might be going on in your life and causing you difficulties. We have transitions mentors who are other students who have done the course before. They might be second-year students who can help you with the transition into university. We've got personal tutors staff members who will stay with you as the personal tutor through your degree and write references for you. And then there's all sorts of extracurricular things, loads of different societies you can join. I'm giving a plug here for the UCL Biochemistry Society that do give you tips and tricks on how to survive as a student. They've got loads of social activities, and at the end they often organise hoodies so that you get leavers hoodies whenever you're finishing up your degree. So if this sounds interesting to you, what do you need to do to make a good application? So what we consider are either your achieved or your predicted qualifications, your A-levels or your IB, your reference is looked at, and your personal statement. Now, I know that the personal statements are changing, and you will be the first cohort, I think, coming in with this new format. So it's set to make things more even and a fair situation. I think you've just got 3 questions to answer. So what we're still looking for in those 3 questions is evidence that you have considered what biochemistry is correctly. Hopefully it resonates your interpretation of biochemistry with what I've just told you. There's loads of scope in biochemistry for different aspects of investigation and interest. So we want that to start with. We want you to have shown us that you've gone a bit further, that you've investigated things. Maybe you've listened to some podcasts, or maybe you've read some books, or maybe you've been to a lecture, or maybe you've even got experience in a lab. Experience in a lab isn't a complete necessity. We know it's really hard to get, but there are lots of other ways that you can show that you have had a bit of motivation and a bit of innovation to try and explore the subject and tell us what it was about that lecture or about that book or about that seminar or that podcast that really sparked your interest in what it is that you would like to do with your biochemistry. Yes, so I've covered all of that second part of that slide. What do our graduates do? You're probably interested at this point, and if you're not, you probably should be interested in what biochemistry graduates do at the end. It's a tough world out there. This is information provided by UCL Careers from the Graduate Outcomes Survey, which is a national survey of all the UK universities 15 months after the students have graduated, and it asks about further study and occupations and employers and satisfaction and earnings and all sorts of things for 5 years. So we have 188 respondents on this, what I'm going to tell you next, 124 of whom were BSc graduates and 64 of whom were MSci graduates. And this is just the most popular types of further study and work. This isn't the entire 100%. I think the remainder is just a mix of various, not particularly related to degree program occupations, but these are the most popular occupations. So most of our BSc students will go on to do a further taught master's degree. And it looks like after that, anybody who goes into actual employment tends to go into finance and accountancy. So there's a lot of our students do go into that. But actually, if you look at this in a bit more of a measured way and take all of these other categories, so I would say that most of our students actually do stay in a science-related thing, because you have the taught master's degree, you have scientists and related technical occupations, which is 10%. You've got a second undergraduate degree, which is usually something like medicine or dentistry, science-related. Well, science, not just related. Business professional, I don't really know, but occupations in data science and IT. So by the time you take all of those, most of our students are staying in a science-related area. So that's the BSc students. MSci students, more of our MScis, not surprisingly, because it's the 4th year is all research aimed, stay on in research as a PhD or an MRes. So a bigger proportion of students do that. But again, most of our students are still staying in science-related things. So scientists and science-related technical occupations, data science and IT, a taught master's degree, which is generally usually a science-related thing. And then we have none, what I would call, medicine as well. And then a lower proportion staying in not related to science things like law or finance or, well, healthcare, I suppose, could be related to science. So that's what our students mostly go on to do. If they're staying on for further study, loads of our students stay with us, which is a really positive testimony to their experience at UCL, and I think the loyalty to UCL. UCL is a fun place to be, and lots of students will stay on. But after that, they go to Imperial, King's, Cambridge, Oxford, Queen Mary, or BPP for professional qualifications. And example employers. Again, here you might know some of these companies, but we've put up the kind of things that they're in. So this is a science one, this is a science one, science one, science one. KPMG, finance, science, law, and finance, which is sort of reflective of what I've just told you in the previous slides. So this is, if you're interested in looking at the graduate outcomes data yourself, please point your cameras at the QR code, and you'll be able to access this site, and you'll get something like this where you can filter for degrees. It'll give you the number of responses, it'll give you salaries, etc., where the graduates work, so you can get much more detailed information. So I'll just quickly flick to the next slide to say thank you very much for your interest in biochemistry. I will go back and put that QR code up if you didn't catch it. But I hope that does give you some feeling of what biochemistry at UCL is like. And I'm going to hand over now to my colleague, Dr. Kane, and to the students for questions. I'm going to stop. Oh, I can't stop sharing just for a minute, Amanda. I'll leave it up for a couple of minutes yet.
Okay, that's all right. We will do our introductions first, and then we can lose the slide and start taking your questions. So I'm Amanda Kane. I'm one of the heads of teaching for the biochemistry degree programs, and also run several of the modules that you'll do. I'm very involved with all of the years across the biochemistry degree programs, so you tend to see quite a lot of me if you join UCL as one of our students. And we have a selection of students here today from across years 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves one by one. I'm going to go down the years. So we'll start with the year 3 students. And if we got Atharva here, please, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Atharva. I'm a year 3 student, and I've stayed with the biochemistry stream. So I've not moved to the molecular biology stream. Yeah, I'm from India. And yeah, it's been a really good experience so far. I think one of the best things about this university is the access to sort of the professors that have had so much experience in the field, and being able to speak with them is a definite plus.
Thank you very much. Mia.
Hi everyone, I'm Muya. I'm in 3rd year as well, and I'm on the biochemistry route as well, and I'm originally from China.
Then in year 2 we have Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm year 2 in the biochemistry stream. I haven't switched over, and I am from Hong Kong.
Lovely. And you're about to go out into year in industry. I'll just add as an additional point there, because that I know is something that people are interested in. Then we've got Savina.
Hello, I'm Savina. I'm in the 2nd year, also doing biochemistry stream, and I'm also from Hong Kong. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. Did Micah join us, or haven't joined at the start? If not, then we have Julian.
Yeah, I'm 1st year, obviously. I've switched. Well, I've at least put the petition in to switch to molecular biology for next year, and that's it. About to sit my first exams, and yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much.
And where are you from, Julian?
Oh, right. I'm half German, half Thai, but I've lived in England for 8 years now. So
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, so we're going to switch to the question format. We would be very happy if you were comfortable enough to turn your cameras on and ask your question verbally. If you don't wish to do that, you could type your question in the chat. So we'll give you a little bit of time to do that. But in the meantime, can I ask people in turn to give and we'll go year 1 up this time, so we'll start with Julian, putting you in the spot here. What's been the highlight of your year since joining UCL, or your 3 years if we go up to the third year? What's the best bit so far?
Obviously, the lectures have been great, but I have to say that the social side as well in London, just because it's very collaborative with other unis. So it's not just what you get on campus unis, I think, where you just sort of socialize with the people at UCL, but there's a bunch of unis close by, like King's, Birkbeck, SOAS, where you really get a good mix of students that all sort of have different interests, and you make a bunch of friends from different places. I have to say that's, for me, that's probably one of the best things so far. But I do also obviously really enjoy the course. So yeah.
Cool. We have one question, but we'll get a couple more highlights so far. So any of the second years, what would you say has been inspiring?
So I'm involved in a science society, and I really enjoy hosting events, like doing all the events organization and planning and inviting speakers. Because one thing about university is that you get to show more initiative and decide what you want to do. So if I want to host a talk to learn more about, let's say, cancer therapy, I could contact a speaker and fill in the forms and the whole event organization to learn what you want to gain more expertise on is really fun. Yeah, and also UCL hosts a lot of science conferences, so if you're on campus, then it's a really great way to learn about different views that you can't really learn through your curriculum alone.
Okay, and anything from third years? What about talking about the projects you've been doing this year?
Yeah, I can talk about mine. Yeah, I think the best bit for your when you're talking about your project, especially your dissertation, is you get to choose five, and then you get one from those five, and you get to choose things you're really interested in, so you can really concentrate in those five areas. And yeah, that's a really good bit. And then you obviously have your supervisor who you can keep talking to about that area of science. So that really helps.
Thank you very much. Right, we've got a selection of questions coming in now, so we'll take these in turn. And any of our students jump in with the first one, because you've all got an idea on this. How big are class sizes generally? And perhaps some of you who are further through the year will have an indication of how class sizes change throughout your time at UCL. Anyone wish to jump in on this one?
Well, I wouldn't know much about second and third year, but for first year it's pretty big. So I like a few hundred in a lecture hall. But yeah, I mean that's all really.
I think
So go Vanessa.
so in first year, it's mostly everyone doing biosciences share some common modules. For example, chemistry. Like if you do biology, biomed, pharmacology, neuroscience, biochemistry, everyone just goes to the same chemistry lectures and potentially cell biology lectures as well. So that's why it's a few hundred. But in second year, most of my classes are just biochemistry based. So each lecture hall will be around like under 100 something people. And we also have tutorials for certain modules, and tutorials are around 6 to 8 people. Yeah.
So we do a range basically. I run one of the big first year modules, and the largest that has ever been is 700. That was an exceptional year. But we also have these courses where we have much smaller classes. Some of the third year classes may only have 20 people in a lecture. And then, as Vanessa said, we have small group tutorials as well. Okay, we might have to go to an admissions tutor on this one, Dr. Ruddy. Are you making offers based on 4 A levels if people are doing 4 subjects?
No, we just want the 3 specific physics, chemistry, maths, chemistry, biology. Sorry, physics is often one that comes up, I think. But no, if you meet the criteria for the 3 that we ask, maths, chemistry, biology at A grade, then that's what we're looking for.
Lovely. And in a personal statement, do you prefer applicants which focus very specifically on a narrow topic in biochemistry, or applicants who are interested in biochemistry as a wider discipline?
That's a really good question, actually. I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference. I suppose if you focus very specifically on something, then you're only showing one angle of biochemistry that you're particularly interested in. But if it's strong enough interest, then I don't think that would necessarily be any better or worse than a wide interest. And you mentioned 3 different aspects that you weren't sure. So we're not asking you to know what exactly you want to do at this stage. We're just asking you to show an interest. So I think I'd have to say, probably doesn't make an awful lot of difference. We just want to see good evidence of your interest.
Thank you. The next one's going to have to be focused at Vanessa, because they're asking about the process of applying for places in industry, and you've just been through this process. So can you tell us a little bit about what that was like?
So at the end of year 1, so there's a talk about what placements are. So briefly, placements are you take a year out and then you just work in a pharmaceutical company or something science related. So in my case, I applied for pharmaceutical companies. So I applied to 4 in total, and all of them have similar processes. So you have to do an online assessment. So it would be like non-verbal reasoning, some verbal reasoning, some mathy problems. And then you have to do an online interview. So it's a video, you have to do video yourself answering some questions. And if you pass that round, they invite you to an assessment center, which is more in-person interview and some group exercises. So it's quite like an actual job application. And some companies let you choose what department you want to go to after you get accepted, but some companies make you choose before you get accepted. So I applied for the R&D one, so like actually lab work one. So this is the process I went through. Oh, and when you submit it, you have to write a cover letter and CV and just answer and write essays about yourself, I think.
Yeah, so if I can just add to that, some companies do have the selection structure that Vanessa talked about, but some, as she said, just simply ask you to submit your CV and a cover letter and why you want that position. So it does vary. Some of the companies are really big, like GSK, some of them can be very much smaller. The placements are usually paid. I think in recent years they're always paid. You don't pay fees while you're out on placement, which is a different thing to lots of other universities. UCL don't charge any fees while you're out. There was something else I was going to say about the work placements. Oh yes, you can have a lab placement, so you're actually in a lab, at the bench doing laboratory work, or you can have something for students maybe who aren't keen on going on into research that's science related, like clinical trials or in-house editorial, science reporting within the company, or marketing or finance or something around the science topic in a big pharmaceutical. So yeah.
Okay, I think that probably covers the next question about work placements as well.
Yeah.
So we'll move on from that one and addressing our students. So have any of you been taught by Nick Lane? Yang, you got a hand up there. Go for it.
Hi, sorry about just now. I don't know if you called my name because there's a fire alarm in my accommodation, so I couldn't hear anything.
No, that's why I can't hear that.
Sorry. Yeah. But anyways, I haven't been taught by Professor Lane himself directly, but first of all, my third year thesis supervisor is a close collaborator of his, and my third year thesis is somehow about like evolution, like about prebiotic molecular biology. And I don't know like what specifically you want to know about him. I know he does he teaches in several modules, like he teaches in one of our bio modules as well in third year. He teaches in the extreme profile module Bike 34 this year. And he also actually gave a talk several years ago at the UCL Biochemistry Society. Like they invited him. He talked about his research in the deep sea hydrothermal vent, like how he thinks prebiotic cellular structures evolved from there, like the hydrogen gradient stuff. Yes. So and also I know like people's been interning in his lab, not from our program, but he's supervised some of the students as well. So I think there will be plenty of opportunities working with him if you want.
Yang, you've got me concerned because the fire alarm. I know you
Ah.
wouldn't be sitting there calmly if it was.
No,
you
no,
said
no,
those-
it's gone. It's gone.
Okay. I was quite
Yeah.
concerned.
It's gone, it's gone. Yeah,
I knew
yeah.
you wouldn't sit there quite calmly, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
thank you.
Okay, next question to students again. What happens in tutorials? Can you give us a rough idea about the different structure of tutorials and what you're expected to do?
Well, I think it depends on the different modules, but mostly since it's a small class, you get to talk more with the professor. So in my experience, there have been some kind of worksheets where you can do exercise problems on different things, including statistics, and also some exam type questions. And also there are some paper discussions. So you read a paper beforehand, and then you go to the tutorial, and then you discuss it with the professors and other students.
Thank you very much. That's a good summary. Lots of different things you would do. I'd say it's an opportunity to practice presenting as well. We get you to present in tutorial groups, which are small group events, certainly from year 1 onwards, and then building up to present into much larger groups in years 3 and 4. Okay, tutorials. So the next one is quick and easy, and I'll just tick that one off. Does UCL interview everybody? No, we don't interview anyone. I believe, Suzanne, it's all based on personal statements, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. It is, yeah.
Okay, and then a good question here. So students, what made you choose biochemistry over other broader programs like biological science or pharmaceutical science? What drew you to biochemistry particularly? Go on then, Mia. You're muted.
Okay, sorry. So when I first chose biochemistry, it was actually for a very simple reason, which is it sounds like biology and chemistry. But as I studied through the program, I think if you're more interested in the more microscopic aspect of biosciences, like the molecular aspect, at most to cellular aspects like the organelles, I would say biochemistry is a better choice. Because, for example, if you go to biology, like biological sciences, they will have, like, say, some, for example, things related to plants, things related to ecology, like this very macroscopic stuff in the first year and even in second year or stuff. And pharmaceutical, I don't think there is a pharmaceutical science program in UCL, right?
It's pharmacy programs.
Yes, there's only, yeah, so that's like widely different. I think that's more chemistry based, and you need to know a lot of like organic chemistry. So like despite biochemistry being called biochemistry, it's really not very chemistry. You don't learn much about organic chemistry. It's more about like the structure of the biologically important molecules. So I would say that's it's really different. If you are interested in chemistry, organic chemistry, very hardcore than pharmaceutical sciences. If you're interested in more macroscopic level, then maybe you should consider biological sciences because it gives you a, I don't know, wider option. But biochemistry is more for the microscopic things, in my opinion.
Thank you. And I think most of you said you'd stuck with the biochemistry stream, except Julian, who hasn't yet experienced the molecular biology. So in broad strokes, the molecular biology stream has less chemistry The biochemistry stream has to do chemistry in year 2, whereas the molecular biology stream doesn't. And in year 3, the molecular biology stream has to do molecular biology, whereas there's a little bit more choice for the biochemists. So you can do very similar options on each. It's not something to worry about at this point in your career. You can see which subjects you really enjoy and pick pathways through the 2 different options to suit you both, to see which suits you most. Okay, right, going back to students, because this is not one I'm involved in at all. How much does it cost to take part in societies and their events? Can you give us some examples of societies you're involved in and how much things you've paid? Is there anyone up beyond Muyang? Let's hear from someone else at this point. Thank you. Go on, Julian.
Well, I think it depends, obviously, what societies. I could speak mainly for sports. And there I'd say average is about 100 quid for the year. Then obviously you have to buy kit and whatnot, but that's separate. But just to partake, it's around £100 for just the average sports society. And then depending on if you're in the first team, and it's also, so the best teams cost more just because you have more trips and more admin to do. But yeah, I'd say £100 per society if it's sports, and then maybe a bit less if it's just social, depending on what it is as well.
So who's in sort of social societies they could tell us a bit about? Yeah,
Can I
Savina,
add?
then Vanessa.
I think for the more science-related societies, as well as some other social societies like food society, so their membership fee is a lot less. So I think it's around £5 to £10 for a membership per society. But also I think you can apply for funding if you are in financial difficulty. So if you require some financial help to participate in the extracurricular activities, you can apply for that funding through the Students' Union. So you won't be prevented from joining these activities.
Okay, Vanessa, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say something before everyone's scared off by the high cost, because A, you can get funding, and B, sports society are expensive because they have to fund trips and like fixtures, but most societies are £5 or less. Like chess society is £3. Biochemistry society, £5. If you like movies, that's like £5. And I think Savina's part of like the bubble tea society, that offers like vouchers. That's also like
That's also £5. It's very cheap.
yeah.
Please join us.
Yeah, so most societies are £5. Like orchestras are a bit more expensive because they have to hire venues, but that's only like £40 or less for like the big ones. But yeah, not everything is £100, so don't worry.
Cool. Thank you very much. Good insights from you all there. Do Muyang and Arthur, tripping over names, have anything else to add at that point before we move on?
Sure. I just add quickly. So, I mean, hiking society, it's £10, and if you're like a leader not like a leader, like a walk leader, not like a committee member of the society, your train trips are also reimbursed. So like the student union does contribute a lot. And if you're in like culture society, for example, I'm in the medieval society, it doesn't cost anything, I would say, other than the £5 membership. So yeah.
Yeah, just to add on to that with just specific examples, I've been part of amateur boxing, the amateur boxing club, which is £40 for the year plus £2 per session. So again, it's not going to be that expensive. And then if you compare it to like social societies, I've been part of a leadership society, which was only £4 for the year. So it really depends. It ranges between what the society is pretty much.
And there is another society question added on when we're talking about this. Can you join multiple societies? You've all given examples of multiple societies you're involved in, so yes. And how many can you join? I don't believe there's a limit beyond what you can actually fit into your schedule.
Yeah, so most societies don't have a weekly meeting, so you can join literally 10 science societies because each science society hosts talks at different times. So you can actually join as much as you want, as many as you want. That's the
Cool.
But also, in the first year, I'd almost recommend just join as many as you can, and then it fizzles out after a couple months anyway. But just for the social aspect as well, you might as well just join everything that's even slightly interesting.
So it's a good way to meet lots of different people beyond biochemists and people on your courses. Okay, a quick question. Is biochemistry based mainly in central London or in Stratford? We are on the central London campus. We don't have any classes based out at UCL East. In fact, I think in my time at UCL, I've been there twice, and that's only specific for meetings and not for any teaching. And then we will go back to Dr. Ruddy for what's taken more heavily into account in application: personal statements, predicted grades, or references.
So the grades are the thing. The grades are absolutely the first consideration. Your predicted grades or your achieved grades if you're applying after having done your exams. Then the personal statement, because as we talked about earlier, we don't have an opportunity to interview you. So we're really trying to get a feel for your enthusiasm for biochemistry. And then after that, your teacher references to consolidate everything and back it all up. So really in that order.
Thank you very much. And another topic has just popped in about summer internships. I don't know how many of our students here have, I know several of you had. How much guidance and help and opportunity have you had for gaining internships?
So if you're on the mailing list, everyone's opt in into the mailing list unless you opt out. But the bioscience notice board will publish science-based internships available once in a while and often. So I had an internship last year because I emailed a professor at UCL, and a lot of people are welcome to do that. So if you contact someone at UCL because you're a student here, you're more likely to get an internship. And as for funding, when you're on an internship, the there would always be advertised funding on the bioscience notice board, and that's how you get to know are the opportunities available outside of UCL and basically how to apply for grants. And there's some societies offer internship panels and CV workshops to provide more guidance on landing some internships. And I think UCL also has a career center. I mean, personally, I've never been to them, but apparently they're really useful. So I just gain knowledge from like going to society panel talks or just talking to older students.
I vouch for the career service. They're very good. You can request a one-to-one session to give you support with all sorts of things relating to careers. Anyone else want to talk a little bit about internships that they've done or experienced? And then we've got one last question in there in relation to offers. If I'm predicted 3A stars, will my offer be higher than if I'm predicted 3As? That would be me, wouldn't it?
I think L probably means stronger. Would she be offered a place? Is she a stronger candidate? And yes, she would be a stronger candidate if she's predicted 3A stars over a 3A. So she'd be more likely to be offered a place, made an offer at that point. So you would be a stronger candidate. But what we are looking for is the 3As. We're not looking for 3A stars, but you would be a stronger candidate.
That's it. And there are contextual offers that are made in some instances that might be slightly lower than the 3As, but no offers are made that are higher than 3As. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't ask for anything higher. Yeah. But it is a competitive degree. So, if you're a stronger candidate with 3A stars, then you're a stronger candidate and you're competing in a more powerful way, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, we've got perhaps a couple of last questions here because we are ticking over the 11 o'clock. So students, was there anything you did in sixth form or equivalent that you think was particularly helpful when you were filling in your university application? Go on, Julian first, then me, Yang.
I'd say extracurricular wise, probably I did some volunteering, and that sort of directly related to sciencey stuff and medicine as well. And that I think was really helpful. I mean, obviously I don't know because I didn't actually get any feedback on my personal statement from UCL.
Yeah,
But
but you're here.
I have, yeah. But I'd say in terms of extracurricular stuff with sports or anything in that direction, I don't think is that helpful. It's very different to American universities if you're applying there. But if you do extracurricular academic work or volunteering or anything in that direction, that's really helpful.
Vanessa?
So I heard one of you mention Nick Lane, and I applied for work shadowing, and the reason why I applied for work shadowing at UCL is because of Nick Lane as well. So I read his book on mitochondria, and I just like really admired him after that. So I emailed one of his colleagues at UCL, Michael Duchan, to do a work shadowing. And that really helped me in understanding what research is like and why I want to do biochemistry. So I would recommend that if you haven't already, you could always email some professors and ask if you can come in for a day or two to just observe what they do.
Okay, we got a question about work experience before you're applying, but I think Dr. Ruddy had said we're not requiring relevant work experience because we know it's difficult to get science-based placements. And then the last question I'll take there, if you do the MSci, do you receive both an undergraduate and a master's degree? And the answer to this one is no. You get a single degree that is an undergraduate degree, but it's at a master's level. So degrees have a particular numerical characteristic associated with them. A BSc is what we refer to as a level 6 qualification, and a master's degree is at a level 7 qualification. You would get an undergraduate degree at a level 7 qualification. If you do a BSc and then apply to a postgraduate master's, you would get both the BSc and an MSc or MRes, and then you would have a level 6 and a level 7 qualification. So you get the higher qualification, but it is a single degree if you do the master's with us going into year 4 and getting all those research project experiences. So that is the end of our questions. Thank you very much for your interest and coming and asking such good questions this morning. Thank you to our panel for giving your opinions and experiences. And as Ian has put in the chat, if you've got any further questions, you are welcome to get in touch via email afterwards.